Hello and welcome to the Patience to Prosperity podcast, where we learn how to act in opposition of our limiting beliefs in order to reach our fullest potential. Today's a really exciting episode because I'm sitting here with my oldest brother, Tom, and we're going to talk all about creative fulfillment. We're going to talk about all of the barriers that come up when we're creating, the process of actually enjoying what you're creating and how that leads to creative fulfillment, and learning to be satisfied with the outcome, what that really means, how to know when your project is finished. We really cover all ends today. And even if you're someone who doesn't consider yourself a creator right now, isn't really pouring their heart into a creative passion of yours, or doesn't necessarily know what you're passionate about yet, this episode can still help you explore that, because the truth is that we're all creators. So I really hope that you guys can get something from this and that you enjoy today's podcast with my older brother, Tom. All right, hello. Tom, if you want to just give yourself a little intro, tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we hop into today's call.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Arduino, Lizzie's brother. I'm a full-time speech-language pathologist in a skilled nursing home in Brooklyn by trade. But I think to tie it into, I guess, like the episode, I'm also pursuing stand-up comedy on the side right now. Because I think we're going to get into a little creativity talk during this session. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about me.
All right, so we're just hopping right into it. I guess we'll start by kind of defining what creative fulfillment really is, because I think that it's very individualized, but at the same time, every single creator goes through the same kind of feelings and process behind it. So I guess I just want to ask you, like, how you would define creative fulfillment in your own words.
I think creative fulfillment, it's really however an individual perceives it, but how I perceive it is getting out or expressing whatever feelings or message, if you will, that is like top of mind, that is like just needs to get out in that moment, just to kind of keep a balance, if that makes sense. It's like,
I like that, yeah.
I think that's like the truest essence of it.
Yeah, I think like when you are putting out your most authentic work that like really stands true to you, that's when that fulfillment aspect comes into it. Because creative fulfillment, like, a lot of people probably think that it has to do with like how well your project is actually doing in terms of like analytics and all of that. But it's actually so much more about the artist itself. It's not really about the audience,
Right?
you know? So it's that's why I say it's so individualized, because you kind of define what creative fulfillment is to you. Like, something that might make you fulfilled is not going to make everyone else fulfilled, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I really view it from like that perspective, because, you know, I view it kind of like this. Like, I can sit down and write a bit on, you know, something that's going on in the news just because it's topical and it might do well on social media or something like that. But that won't necessarily give me the most fulfillment.
Right.
As if I like wrote a bit on like whatever was like bubbling up inside me that I felt like I needed to get out type thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Things more near and dear to my heart, and I feel like that's when the best art comes out of, and the best expression and creativity comes out. Maybe that's getting like a few levels deeper than like really just what is it, but
no, but let's go there.
I think it has to go hand in. To me, it has to go hand in hand with, I think, authenticity.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the deeper reasons behind it.
Right.
I think it ties in too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll get into that too. Yeah. I feel like you need to have a foundation set before you actually pursue whatever creative passion came to you. Like, you kind of have to ask yourself, what is your why in the first place? Because if you're just doing it for the fame, for the clout, for money, whatever it is, like, everything that you put out there is going to come off as inauthentic, and you're not going to really feel as fulfilled as you would if you were just doing it because it came to you as a passion in the first place, and it comes through you in a kind of seamlessly like easy manner. But that kind of led me, like when you were talking about like, yeah, you could sit there and you can just talk about things that are happening in the news to just like get publicity and stuff. But that kind of led me to like the thought of like things that limit our creative expansion and possibilities. Like, what do you think are some things that can really like put limits on our creative expansion?
I feel like you kind of mentioned it earlier, but catering to an audience,
Right.
or like, and I think that also like ties in with like, it's really not catering to the audience. I think you're more so catering to like your fears and insecurities. I think that's really what they're masked as.
Yeah, I
think that's a huge killer. Don't get me wrong. Like there are definitely times where you need to take into account, especially for like, in my case, like doing stand up, you do have to take into account the audience, especially in like the climates nowadays with like, what can you say? What can't you say? Like you can't just completely ignore it.
Right.
But you can't let it dictate like what you want to say at the end of the day, because you really have to just like stand by it. I view it like, because I mean, Liz, you know, but the audience doesn't. But when I was younger, for work, I umpired Little League games. And like the best piece of advice that I got from doing those games was like, listen, if he's out, if he's safe, regardless of what it is, if you're unsure, be confident in your call, because people will feed off of the confidence behind it, and they will tend to side with you if you're making the call with as much confidence as it is, even if you're not inside. Just make the decision and look decisive.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing for creativity, for like stand up. Honestly, if it's huge, because it's just like you're basically up there selling something,
right?
And it needs to be believable. But to get back to what was the original question?
It was just, what are some things that you think limit your creative expansion or possibility?
Yeah, no, definitely catering to the fears,
for sure,
other people's opinions and stuff. And one thing that I've gotten out of like my creative journey is that one of my favorite things is that like fears are actually things that we should be running towards.
100%.
And like that's been a really cool self-actualization that I've come across and learned on this. And I still struggle with it because it's difficult, but it's been a huge eye-opener of like, wow, the true fulfillment is on the other side of fear.
Yes, because it proves to yourself that like you're stronger than you actually think you are. And I think a lot of people, like, you're kind of steering this right in the direction I wanted to go in. A lot of people think that fear or resistance is intuition. Like that's something telling them that they are not going down the right path, that they should be, like dropping everything that they were passionate about and going in a different realm because they're scared.
Yeah. You should always feel like at Zen, and you should always be, and that's not, and I have struggled with this feeling, and I still struggle with it like to this day of like, well, I want to feel good. I don't want to feel like taxed. I don't want to feel like expended and and exhausted, but like that is part of it. And it is like a great reframe for all of this. With facing fear, it, for me, has been like growing is painful.
100%.
So like, it's like reframing it like, yeah, this is super uncomfortable and challenging, and I'd rather be doing something else maybe even right now, but like, this is going to benefit me over the long run. This is what you have to do to keep making it, or to keep progressing.
Right.
It's like going to the gym. It's like, that's not it's probably the least pleasurable activity you could do for yourself, but it's the best thing you can do. In the moment, it's the worst, but it's the best thing you can do for yourself over the long run. So it's like a balancing of those two things, and reframing that it's like, well, pain is actually good, long term versus short term. It really does sometimes boil down to that.
Which also, like, gets me thinking about the difference between motivation and discipline. Like if you are
Right.
solely just relying on motivation to get you to where you want to be with whatever passion that you're pursuing,
Hmm.
you are ultimately setting yourself up for failure. Because
Yeah.
even the artists that have billions of dollars, that have absolutely just made everything like possible that they didn't even imagine was possible,
Yeah.
they still go through times where they lack motivation. I love watching YouTube videos and stuff on artists getting interviewed on like their projects that they have put out. And someone who I've been listening to like a lot of her videos and interviews on it recently is Billie Eilish, because she just
Yeah.
dropped like one of, I think honestly probably her best album yet. And she explained that in the works of that album, she literally thought that she was done. Like she thought she
Yeah.
lost her spark completely with music. And then she went out and created what she thinks is her best album yet. And it really, like, she really took the audience out of it for a second. Like she really just like tapped into what was working for her at the time. And I think it's also important to note that what has worked for you in the past is not always going to work for you. Like we kind of just put this
And that's a good
blueprint,
thing. That's actually a
and
good
that's a
thing.
good thing. That literally just
Yeah.
means that you're growing. That just means that your
Yeah.
passion and your practice is growing to the point where you need to add something else to the table in order for that fire to keep going, you know?
Hmm.
So I think that kind of has to do with what I asked you about. What do you think our limits are? Because I think we often put ourselves in boxes and we like label ourselves as a particular style or category or whatever
Hmm.
it is. And ultimately, all that's doing is limiting our creative ability, because now we feel like if we have an idea that's outside of the category that we put ourselves in, we can't pursue it because we
Hmm.
don't fit that box anymore. So it's kind of just about like dropping those barriers, those walls, and those boxes that we're putting ourselves in, and like
Yeah.
literally just letting your mind freely go to wherever it needs to go and trying to explore that more.
Yeah, and I think it's like a constant battle too, because right, for like a starting artist, you're maybe clinging on to like one or two techniques that you've had success with, and like you're really sticking with that, but like you're kind of getting repetitive, you're getting predictable. Maybe maybe that's hindering, and you need to find like a new and like start branching out, finding a new style or something and experimenting. And then on the flip side, like you said, artists of the stature of like Billie Eilish, she's probably tried everything, and she's like, what is my next move? I feel like I've tried every iteration
Right.
of my music. Like, where can I possibly go at this point? And like
Right.
that is, in her case, that is one of the downfalls of starting and becoming a star so early in her
Right.
life. Like, she's gonna be able to wear any aspect of music out
Yeah.
because she's gonna have that longevity. But yeah, and to go back to like the discipline aspect of it, I think people often like view artists as like very like loose spirited, like I'll do it when I'll do it, like when I'm in the mood. But you really, if you want to have longevity, you really do have to pursue it like a business or like a 9 to 5. And this is something I'm trying to incorporate into my life and my schedule now, because if you want to be serious and you want to achieve a certain level, like more so than it just fulfilling you, like you want to do it for a living, you want to push it as far as possible, you need to be doing it every day as much as possible. And like I said, approaching it like a business. Like I view it, because I did sports my entire life, and I was more of the athlete versus like the artist earlier in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of approach it as with like a training mindset, kind of like
Yeah. Yeah. I feel
aspect
like
to
that's
it.
where my brain goes too, which is really interesting how you can kind of connect the dots between like physical exertion and exercise and training with
Yeah.
creative passions and
Hmm.
pursuit, because I think the two really do go hand in hand. And like, I feel like I always, whenever I'm looking for like a metaphor or an analogy to try to connect the dots for like my viewers also, like my brain automatically goes to like working out and like
Yeah.
training and stuff, because the two just overlap so much.
They do, and it's just an easy comparison. Like
Right.
I'll do it at work all the time too. I'll compare like what we're doing for like speech therapy to working out, but
Yeah.
for like your mouth and your speaking. Like
Right. Yeah, it's like what you put out, you'll get back. Like
Yeah.
if you're going to the
Yeah.
gym 5 days a week, like you're gonna gain some muscle. You're gonna get something out of it. So I think that's
Right.
honestly what it comes down to. And the fact that
Yeah.
it's just not linear. Like just because like you're working out
Yeah.
every day doesn't mean you're not going to get sick sometimes and have to take a week off. Like stuff like
Right.
that.
And it kind of helps you keep sane too. It's like you have a goal for like working out, and then you have like a workout plan that'll like map you there. So it's like helps you kind of stay tethered to the line of like, okay, like am I making progress? Like, yeah, because I said that if I just do this every day, and like I've really been trying to adopt like the 1% better every day mentality and just like add that up. I love the quote, Albert Einstein, the eighth wonder of the world is compounded interest. Like that's how I view it. Like 1% every day, and then by the end of the year, you're going to be 3 times better at whatever it was than you were at the beginning, and that's a lot of progress for just 1 year.
I think that's what it is. Everyone just like tries to put all of their eggs in one basket, and it's kind of just like throwing so much at the wall, seeing what sticks, and like, yes, that approach, honestly, like you do need that approach sometimes, especially in the beginning. Like if you just want to put all of your ideas out there, see what works for you, and then like go with that. But I think that we get ahead of ourselves when we're trying to do so much at once. Like literally, like I said, going back to the working out thing, if you are over exercising yourself, then you're going to burn out so fast, and then you're not going to be able to make any meaningful progress in the gym because you just burnt yourself out. Like we could go and bounce back with that analogy like all day long, but it really does stand true to the concept of creative fulfillment.
Yeah, I know I can have a tendency to dream like really big, but then that can also cast like a huge shadow and be like super overwhelming of like, oh, well, like I got to get there, but like I'm a million steps from there.
Right.
So it can be very covert demotivating.
I agree. I go through the same thing.
Like one of the quotes on my vision boards I have are be like keeping your eyes in the stars and then your feet on the ground. So it's like keep balancing that out.
Yeah, we look at it in a sense where it's like you're looking into the future, you're dreaming big. That's such a good thing. But at the same time, you're still not living presently if you're always thinking about the future. Like it's good to have dreams, but they shouldn't be taking you away from the present moment, because then you're not able to actually create what you're supposed to be creating right now.
Exactly. And that's a great point, because it's like I was actually thinking about this like literally yesterday, that like I think the best quality a person can have is like thriving through adversity.
Ooh.
And like I feel like that ties into what we're talking about right now, because I think people get drunk on a dream.
Yeah.
And then you don't put enough work into it because you get so high off of the one day.
Right.
And I think what you really need to be is obsessed with the like, yeah, I'm going to the gym today.
Right.
And I'm going to put in the best like hour workout.
Yeah.
That I can. And that's freaking awesome. And that's all the fulfillment I need right now.
Right. It's like showing up the best that you possibly can every single time you do it.
Yeah. It's like almost like anti-dreaming. It's like it's the complete opposite. You're present, you're focused, you're concentrated, you're definitely going to put in your best effort. And that'll only lead to maximum fulfillment, and then leads into, it fuels your motivation.
100%. And
so like the person who does that and can accomplish that, they're going to find themselves more motivated than someone else would be. And that ties back into, the motivation versus discipline aspect. So it's like you kind of create your own momentum and your discipline by just being present. I think just being present is a huge superpower that is becoming less and less common today.
I agree.
How we choose to live our lives.
100%, because everyone's just looking for like instant gratification. And I bring that up a lot in the podcast, actually. But that's so true. And I feel like that's a big reason why we kind of view our dreams becoming reality as something that's so rare. Like we see that these big stars blow up and we see that people get famous and left and right. But at the same time, in the back of our heads, we're like, no, it'll never happen to us. It'll never happen to us. But at the same time, like all it really takes is being present and faking it until you make it. Like we mentioned in the beginning, like literally just showing the world that you're confident, even if you don't feel that way. Because why would someone believe in you if they see that you don't even believe in yourself? You know? They're not going to follow you on your social medias and help you blow up. They're not going to come back to your podcast to listen to it if they know that what you're talking about, you're not even sure about yourself. Like confidence is huge.
Yeah. And I was literally just having this conversation yesterday. The climate of social media right now, the like who's getting famous overnight sensations. And I think we're like forgetting because social media virality caters to the more dumb and simple a post is.
Yeah.
I think, it doesn't necessarily cater to the most quality information out there.
100%.
Fake news, all this branches out of this.
I think people are just looking like when you go on Instagram, you're not looking for something that's super intricate, super educational, super, like you're looking for something that is instantly going to stimulate your brain and something that is super quick. Like it's that quick dopamine hit. And I think that's honestly the biggest problem right now with our younger generations is that we're all like, we have a huge problem with dopamine hits right now. Like it's
really a problem that like
it's so bad.
People don't really realize.
No, it's so bad. Like our attention spans have gone down to the point where like we have the same attention span as like a fruit fly. And like that is ridiculous. Like you scroll through TikTok and like people won't even listen to your TikToks that are over like 30 seconds long. Yeah. Like you can see it in the analytics. Like people will literally click off. Like it's insane.
Yeah. The point I was getting at is that like we're moving further and further away from like if you want people to follow you, like you were saying, like you got to provide a value to the person. Now value is subjective. So if you want to call like some of the things on social media that are like the overnight stars, if like perhaps they provide a value to some people, that's a completely subjective assessment, but like if you really want to build, I'm more interested in building something that has longevity.
Right.
So I view it, if you want to do that, you have to provide a value. And the two forms of value, it's either got to be educational or it has to be entertaining.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing one of those two things, preferably, in my opinion, both.
Both. Yeah.
I think it's a real cool precipice, if you will, of creativities. I think the best creators that I enjoy are both entertaining and informative.
100%.
And so
because that hits both sides of your brain too. Like both sides of your brain are getting stimulated at the same time. So
and it's also like it's a stamp of like competence in a way. It's like it's like, okay, this was well thought out. It's like, why am I gonna go to like this expensive restaurant, pay $80 for this dish or whatever? Fine dining. We just watched The Bear, so we're like in that kind of mode. So it's like, oh, because they were working on this dish since 5 a.m. and they've been marinating the chicken for a week.
Right.
And they put, it's like all of this work and preparation was put into this for my enjoyment. So I feel like you get that aspect of it more often. Yeah. However, like most people don't give a shit about that. That is an aspect of it is that like there is only a certain amount of people that like get it. I kind of view it too as like, to put it, maybe not now because he's like much bigger, but I feel like Kendrick like a few years ago was like that, like expensive, like chicken dish. They're like, when To Pimp a Butterfly came out, they're like, who cares about all this like important stuff? I want to be like dancing to that club song that Drake is playing. Right. And now the whole thing is completely flipped, which is interesting with the beef, but that's a kind of a separate issue.
Yeah.
But like it is kind of, I kind of view it like that. It's like Kendrick's so deep and dense and thought out, and then it's like Drake on the other side just has like the radio formula played out and knows how to pop right away. So it's like, which path do you want to do? Both have their place and both can be successful. It just, I guess, is like, what's your style?
Yeah, exactly. But I would honestly argue that you get more creative fulfillment out of the one who's doing it for longevity, the one who's making art that is timeless. But you also have to be, I guess, comfortable, and you have to accept the fact that not everyone is going to understand that you're putting more effort in, that you're
right.
There's so much that goes behind the work that you're putting out. And that's something you can't take personally, because that completely diminishes all of the substance that is behind your work. Like, if you're just doing it all for the audience to see that, then it takes away from like your own spark and your own kind of special quality that you hold behind your work.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think ultimately you get more fulfillment out of doing something with a more long-term perspective.
100%.
And I think that only shows itself and benefits itself in the work more. Like I said, both can have success, but I think ultimately you're doing your best work when you're having long-term point of view over like short-term point of view.
I think so too.
Better intentions behind the work. You're making the decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
Instead of others in that mentality. And I think there's also a lot less expectations when you're in that mindset. I think it kind of allows you to take the pressure off and like, listen, like, I'm doing this because this is how I feel, and I feel like it maps to my long-term vision. If this post doesn't work, all right, I'll pivot and I'll figure it out after this. But I'm not like stressing out pressing post because I'm nervous it's going to get 10 likes.
Right.
You put out what you want to put out. If it maps to your North Star, that's all you need to worry about. And now we're like going back to like worrying about the audience and everything. But like all of this stuff is so connected. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think honestly, another point to make with that is that even if you're going down the route of creating something for more of a longevity mindset rather than like short-lived, either way, with each approach, there is still ways that you can limit your creative expansion. There's still ways that you can put yourself in boxes, because even if you're looking at yourself as someone who wants to create really timeless work, you can limit yourself by not letting yourself just put out work that isn't your best work all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we're not always going to produce at our highest ability. And like, I feel like it's easy to put that pressure on yourself and be like, this is not my best work, because you know that you're capable of something better. But at the same time, we're human beings, and like, you're not always going to put out your best work. Like, sometimes you need those projects that are a little bit of a flop in order to get back on your horse and create something that's even bigger than you imagined before.
No,
like, sometimes the bad work just becomes a little piece of what the big work is, you know?
Yeah, because I just think like doing is so important. And like, look at like musicians, like they're always playing their instruments, even when it's just like nonsense in the background.
Yep.
But like that's contributing to their skills.
Right.
It doesn't look like much. They're just riffing. It's not being put into a song. They're not recording. They're not, they're getting nothing out of it.
Right.
But they're actually getting everything out of it because they're practicing their craft, and they're coming up with different chord combinations that they're going to incorporate in their future art and stuff. So I think like I've really struggled with like the wasting time aspect of like creativity and like and that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, this feels like I'm being like wasteful, or I'm like, but so much of art is about what I call gathering like source material. Yeah. Really like inspiration, like things that you're gonna like. I sent you that Basquiat video on YouTube, which I think is fantastic, where he would literally go to like museums and he would see something on an exhibit Like in the video, he was referencing like a Roman era belt. He saw that at like the Met and then went home and like put it on a painting. So like he's going to the museum and like he's not working on his art. So like one would argue that that's wasteful.
Right. Yeah.
He's not doing anything, but it's actually like propelling him and giving him fuel to his art.
Right.
So I think having very like rudimentary, I guess what I'm getting at is very rigid perspectives with creativity. It can be very limiting.
Yeah.
In that regard. Yeah.
And to tie that back, like that kind of just hit on a point that I wanted to make today too. Like you kind of have to make meaning of meaningless art. Like if you're putting something out there and you're like, this one, like, I don't know, I just don't really feel like there's something behind it that I'm trying to get through. Like, you can make meaning of that. And maybe the meaning of it is literally just that you are touching your dream a little bit, that you're like putting a little effort into something that matters to you, even if it's not something you want to put out. You know what I mean? Like it makes me think about like going back to the Billie Eilish interviews. She always talks about how the second she wakes up in the morning, she's listening to music. Her literal alarm in the morning is a song. Like she is always listening to music. And for me with podcasting, I cannot podcast unless I'm listening to podcasts all the time. Like I get my creative spark out of listening to other artists. And like when I go through social media, now it's more of like, it's research now. Like I see like what's working for people, like what sounds they're using, stuff like that. And it's like, it's all about the meaningful progress that you're making and enjoying the process in order to actually feel fulfilled by the work that you're creating. So it's all about satisfaction, I guess, at the end of the day.
For sure. Yeah. And it's like, again, going back to the fulfillment and like doing it for yourself. And like, sometimes it's better for me to like write a silly line or joke that like I won't use on stage, but like it kind of makes me feel good.
Yep.
Keeps my flame lit
type
thing. Or like getting an idea and it's like, you know, it's not ready yet, but it's super exciting. And like, how am I gonna, you know, extrapolate what I need from this? But there's definitely something there, like that excitement.
So it's huge, like write it down. Even if you know before you even write it down that it's not something that you want to put out there for whatever reason it is. Just write it down because that creative idea came to you anyways. And needless to say, like it can always be something you can build off of and make something else out of it. Like you have to write shit down because you're gonna forget about it.
And I feel like I'm at my best with creating when I'm loose. So like I think it's so important to create without any self-judgment. Or at least having a first draft mode where it's like there's no judgment here. Everything that comes to mind is going on paper, and then that's why we have the editing process after.
Like stop worrying about the punctuation and like take that literally like or metaphorically.
Ideas on paper, like maybe don't even worry about the structure, like just get it a framework down and like if it's trash tomorrow, it's trash tomorrow. But like maybe you even salvage like a paragraph out of the 3 pages. And listen, that's something. You did something. So I think it's a product of like how we live today. Like so checklist to checklist. So like we got to be making progress. So like this box needs to be checked or I'm not making progress. But there's so many ways to make progress that like our brains can't even like comprehend in the moment. Like because it's so covert. So there's a great quote that I love is an interview from Ed Sheeran. He's talking it in terms of songwriting, but I think it could be used for creativity in general. It's like a faucet. And when you're starting out, there's going to be a lot of dirty water coming out of the faucet. But you have to just keep the faucet running because eventually you'll run out and you'll clear out all that dirty water and eventually fresh water will be flowing through it. And I think that's a great metaphor for creativity because a big challenge that I find with like starting off in comedy, it's super difficult to write and do stand-up comedy. I view it's like if the hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a baseball, I think the hardest thing to do in entertainment is to do stand-up comedy. And and you really can't say no to that unless you've done it yourself, because
Right.
it's people think like, oh, I make my friends laugh, I can go up there and make people laugh. It's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into
Um,
it, but it's honestly also one of the most fascinating crafts. There's a literal art to it, and there's like a formula to it almost. Like, you know what
Yeah.
people are looking for. Honestly, like, it's also really scary, and there's nothing like it in the sense that we obviously like live in a world where there's a lot of things that you can't really say because you're going to offend people. But with stand-up comedy, like, you have to know what is crossing the line and what is just getting to the line, to the point where like
yeah.
people will still laugh, but it's something that wouldn't fly if it was just like a TikTok made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a an aspect of stand up that in my eyes like makes it beautiful, because I think it's like, I view stand up as like it's always the benchmark of society. Like, if you really want to understand a culture, or like you want to understand like what's going on in the world or American culture, I think stand up is the mirror of it all.
Yeah.
So it's really cool in that regard. It's like, okay, like, where's the line nowadays? Because we're going to find it, we're going to go over it.
Yeah.
And we'll establish a new line, or it'll just be fun to kind of see like where the tensions lie and all of that stuff. So yes, it is very cool in that regard.
Especially in the sense that like stand-up is, I think, like one of the only crafts where like your only focus, your main goal is literally just to make others laugh. Like even in comedic movies or whatever like that, like there's always a plot that like gets a little intense or this or that. Like, you're not laughing the entire time, you know? With stand-up, it's like there's one specific emotion that you're trying to get from your audience, and like that's what you're tailoring every single joke to. So it's a really cool craft.
It's definitely, you got to hit your beats, and like and you got to be making people laugh like every 5 to 10 seconds, unless you can like really hold a story, which is super hard to do. Yeah. Like guys like Dave Chappelle, where like they don't have to be getting laughs for you to be completely at the edge of your seat. Storytelling is the coolest thing, and in my opinion, the most powerful thing in the world is stories. It's movies are stories, songs are stories, and I think it's the really like the best thing we have. Like I love stories. That's why I want to do stand-up comedy. It's the best. For sure. So moving more into like enjoying the process, because I think that's like a really huge aspect to cover when you're talking about creative fulfillment. I like honestly would argue that like if you are not enjoying the process of creating, you're not going to like what you created. You're not going to feel fulfillment from what you created. Like, that's where that satisfaction comes in, when like you were doing something that you were so passionate about, and you were just like fueling that the entire time. So I kind of want to introduce the concept of like caring instead of controlling. Like, instead of trying to control the art, trying to control the audience that will come out of it or whatever it is, like actually just focusing on pouring all of your passion and all of your care into the work that you're doing, and then letting the audience determine, you know, like what it means to them, because you kind of have to make it about you. Like, this is another Billie Eilish thing that I'll come back to. Like Phineas, her brother, her producer, was saying how when someone's listening to the Billie Eilish song Lunch, we all know like what that song's about. They're not thinking about like Billie and her experience in that song. Like, no, he was like, they're thinking about who they want to have lunch with. Like, you know, your like, own perspective. Yeah. So you're taking the work of someone else, a story, like you said, a story that they're creating based off of their own personal experience as a creator, and the audience determines what it means to them. So you can't make someone feel a certain way about your art, you know, like you can definitely attach emotion to it yourself, and they determine where that goes. Like, emotion cannot be anything without a story attached to it.
You know, like you can't feel anything unless you're telling yourself something, you know?
Right.
So I
Right.
just think that's a huge part that I wanted to know. I don't know if you have anything to add to it,
That
but
yeah, that's yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. For one, it's super interesting because that in my eyes puts a glimpse into like about going back to the audience. It's like,
mhm,
well, they're going to perceive it from something and you don't have any control over how they're going to perceive it in the first place. So why are you considering them?
exactly.
You know, it's just one of those things. Like I've been really like studying stoicism more
Yeah.
intensely recently, and like their biggest thing is to control what you control and disregard everything else, and to
Yeah.
maintain your inner peace. And
Yeah.
I believe maintaining your inner peace is like the most crucial, one of the most crucial things you can do as like an artist or someone who wants to be creative. Obviously, you can make great art having like a war inside of you as well,
Right.
but I kind of, you know, we talk about longevity. I don't think that's the, you know, most healthy
Right.
longevity aspect of to
Creating.
make art.
Yeah.
um and then the other aspect of going back to what you said about lunch,
Yeah.
when people are going to take it into their own perspectives and everything too, it gives you that more freedom to
Exactly.
explore the lines in the sand and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And that's where like, because I feel like everyone's so scared of the lines nowadays because of how culture is and
Yeah.
cancel culture and offending people. But that's where the great art lies. It's
Right.
on those lines. And the best art, you know, to quote from Rick Rubin's book, which we're both huge fans of,
Yep.
The creative act, like the
I've been
best
waiting
art.
for us to bring up a quote from this book.
Yeah, you know, facts. The fact that it's taken this long is actually a crime. But the best art divides a room.
Right.
Like when with comedy, I view it as like I want everyone in this room on their knees, like dying laughing. But that's not always the best. That's not the best outcome. Like you look at like Dave Chappelle's, I think Sticks and Stones. I think is my favorite Chappelle
Yeah.
special that he's done. And honestly, out of he goes pretty hard in all of his specials. I think he goes the most hard in that one, and like rightfully so for the name of it, Sticks and Stones.
Yeah.
You know, he really goes hard with all of the controversial topics that he's known to, you know, toe that line.
Yeah.
And there's people I like vividly remember. There's people in the audience when they pan to it that are like not really laughing at
Yeah.
these jokes that I find hysterical
Yeah.
and like some of the best jokes I've ever heard in my life. So I think that's really what you want, because that's what art's about, right? It's not
Yeah.
me. If art was about me, it would be about getting 100% of the room on my side and dying at my jokes. So that's not the purpose
Right.
of it. The purpose of making art is for, you know, the world, for others, for really just giving your perspective of something,
Yeah.
and a piece of you to the world for other people to resonate off of, to make sense of their own human
Right.
experience.
Right.
You know, it's completely unconnected and completely opposite of, I think, what a lot of people think it is and
Yeah.
what social media makes it out to
Yeah.
be and all that stuff. So
But then, like, the people that stick with you and the people that find you funny or whatever it is in whatever art you're doing, like,
right.
those are the people that's the audience that you curated yourself from your work, which is where that satisfaction comes from. Like, then you curated an audience that completely, like, understands your craft. Like, they understand your brain and how your brain, like, is able to stimulate theirs. Like, it's just
No,
it's all like an art. And like, if you're not doing
absolutely.
something that you're a little bit scared about, then you're not doing anything big at all. Like, you have to be a little scared.
Right. And also to bring back the 100% of the room example versus,
Yeah,
you know,
I like that
splitting
example
the
a
room.
lot.
If you're really thinking rationally about it, if you're getting 100% of the room on your side, it's likely you're not being your true authentic self.
Right.
You know, especially as that room gets bigger. It's like you have to be disagreeable. Like what I love so much about stand-up is that it's like it's a tightrope act. And I think it's so wrong when people get upset over like jokes that are like offensive or that are things about, you know, aspects of life that aren't inherently funny. I think that's like the best
That's like the purpose.
And the most skilled comedians, the skill really comes out from like, if someone can really make a skillful like Holocaust joke over like a joke about, you know, sex or pooping.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's so much skill that has to go into the Holocaust joke. And, you know, the offensive part of it aside, it's there's funniness in everything. And I think like that's how I cope with the craziness of life, is by laughing at things. So I think like the offensive part, I don't really understand to a degree sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it's funnier than it is offensive. That's the whole thing with jokes. It's got to be. But like you don't have like the tightrope suspense without going into those topics that are pushing the boundaries.
Right, 100%.
And that are weird. Or like, what about abortion's funny? Nothing inherently, but there's hilarious abortion jokes, and we learn more about ourselves and about our society, and we learn like, I'm a huge George Carlin fan.
Yeah.
Like we actually learn and reveal our true motivations, our true reasons for things when they're just one way. Like we learn like what are we doing here? What is actually right? What is actually wrong versus what, like, let's actually think through this with no judgment, with no biases that we place on things because of our backgrounds, religions, whatever. Let's really objectively look at this on a human level.
Yeah.
And like, maybe like, let's laugh about it instead of wanting to like actually like hurt people over this issue that we're having. Let's talk about it instead. I think that's what I'm getting to, is that this is just like, the purpose of the art is to explore the human experience and to like actually just like bring us together. And that's one thing about comedy that I love too, is like, you can kind of, you know, you can be on two opposite sides of like the abortion issue, but if you can both laugh about that, well, now we're on a path towards figuring out a solution to a real world problem.
Right.
Versus just debating it and being mad at each other and both going home pissed off and upset, and that the world is falling apart.
Yeah.
So like, you want to cancel Chappelle because he said some stuff about like trans people, or is it better that he's actually like giving that a platform?
Yeah.
And like, that's being discussed in like, it's not nice to make fun of those people.
Right.
But everyone gets made fun of.
Right.
Everyone has something that can be made fun of, can be made light of. I think people just have to kind of relax a little bit more. Like life is not that serious.
Right.
Like, just take a step back, chill, you know, take a hit of this type thing.
Yeah.
And just like, it's, you know what, it's really not that crazy. It's not worth being bent out of shape over. It's not worth your mood being compromised over it. Never mind, you know, like something bubbling up to like an act of violence like we see happening. You know, so I don't know, this is just a long-winded rant of just like, I think how it could be super healing, but we kind of view it in the other way. We view it as like actually like harmful, but
no, I think honestly, like, comedy is like the perfect example of that too, because it's really a craft that's just so different than every other craft. Like, it's just a completely different branch in terms of creation. And like you said, like, I really liked what you said about, if 100% of the room is on your side, then you're probably not acting in your most authentic way. You're probably just showing the audience exactly what you know they want to hear. And eventually that big crowd is going to drop down to almost nothing when they understand that, like, you're not actually as authentic as you're trying to put it off. Like, that comes down to honestly just those short-term goals, or those short-term kind of creative acts that we were talking about. Because if you stand up there and your goal is to just make everyone in the audience laugh that night, and then you're done with comedy for the rest of your life, sure, get 100% of them on your side. You know exactly what you want to say to get the whole audience in. But if it's something where you want to create an audience that is curated to you, that is curated to your craft, that sees your authentic self behind what you are presenting them, then that is an audience that will last you a lifetime. Those are your ride or die audience. You know what I mean? So I think that was a really good point to make. And I just like kind of wanted to tie that back into like my train of thoughts.
Yeah, no. I did kind of get out there, more
No,
bigger picture stuff, but yeah,
no, that was
it's
great.
I just think you're ultimately serving your best interests, and really you're serving your audience the best when you're being your true authentic self, because I think like without even realizing it, because I spend like a lot of time analyzing art
Yeah,
and like music, like I can't listen to a song without like analyzing it,
right.
just because I love doing it.
Yeah,
And going back to like why we love art because we want to make sense of our
yeah.
life and
We make
experiences
meaning of
and
everything.
everything. And so like we like love a certain song because we're getting a glimpse into someone's life. You know, not
Right,
everything is true that's put into art, but
right,
it's a reflection of something that happened,
right.
or an experience, and you get to kind of make sense out of another person's experience, or get a glimpse into their life and be like, oh, they experienced that too. Like that's super, that makes me feel like really, really great. And like, I feel like, you know, I can accomplish this or overcome this because this artist did that. Or like, I'm not alone in like going through this certain struggle or experiencing that thing in my life. Like other people have went through it and they've been okay. So like, I'll be okay. So like,
Yeah,
you get that out of it. And I feel like if you're going for 100% of the room, you're not going to be putting out art that touches on that aspect of life as much.
yeah.
You're going to be going for the easy knockout punch.
Everything's about the audience when you're trying to get every single person on
Yeah.
your side, you
And you're
know?
never going to evolve like
Right.
that. You're never going to get better. You're going to, it's a straight path to burnout creatively.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't set you up as like that springboard for creative success and evolving as an artist.
Yeah. And I think like also tying that back to what we were talking about with like people will make meaning. Like say an artist puts out a song. We were
Mm.
talking about Lunch with Billie Eilish. When an artist puts out a song, when the audience makes meaning of it in their own personal life, say an artist, you know, like puts out a song about a breakup, when someone listens to that song, they're not thinking about that artist's breakup, they're thinking about their
Right.
own personal breakup that they've been through and their own, you know, trials and tribulations throughout life, all of that. Like they're making meaning of it themselves. And I would argue that as the creator who put out that song, like you get so much more creative fulfillment knowing that people are attaching their own stories and
That's a
evoking
great
their
point.
own emotion through it rather than just being a bandwagon on your own life and kind of just like,
No, yeah.
because that also like I feel like creates more fear and judgment when you're
Yeah.
releasing something that people only like because it's about your life, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point to make. I'm thinking like of an example like Taylor Swift. People, obviously she's the biggest star of all time
Yeah.
at this point. Like she's huge because her fans relate to her music
Right.
big time because they've been broken up like and heartbroken before.
Yeah.
And they don't really care about her that much, right? It's like, and if they, you know, I'm not saying they don't care about Taylor Swift, but if they care about her, you know, 99%, they care about themselves the 100%. That goes with anyone. So
Yeah.
it really is about, you know, now looking at it from the artist perspective, it is about providing the audience more
Right.
than what you're really getting out of it. You want them to understand like maybe your message or your story that you're trying to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're going to connect with it much more if they understand your story and what you're trying to say, and they also
Right.
connect with it, and it, you know, reverberates with them in their spirit
Yeah.
from another level, like because they've went through something, because they understand the pain, and
Yeah.
or they understand the joy of something of
And
the art that you're
I
creating.
think that's where the care from Taylor Swift's huge fan base comes from, is that since she is able to reach them at such like a vulnerable level and really just like put all of these emotions into words that people are not able to do themselves.
Right.
That's where that care comes from. That's why people care so much about her love life, because it's like, oh, she's been through so much. She's able to voice things that I can't even voice about my own situation. Like, yeah, I want to know about her and Travis Kelce. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, and like people are looking for like benchmarks, or like they're looking for like, I mean, it's not healthy, but like comparing or like seeing it's like, oh, they did it, so I can do it type thing, trying to get that empowerment. But the word that you said that really rang around in my head was emotion.
Yeah.
Because I mean, art and emotions are, in my opinion, like one and the same. Like the best art, that's what makes art great, is it evokes an emotion out of you. And that's where the connection to the artist comes, right? It's like they're able to evoke this emotion out of them that is familiar to that audience member, and therefore you feel like you like know the artist when you might not have even like met them or even been in the same room as them at the same time. And that's where like the success in art lies,
right?
Because that's where, you know, if you could make someone laugh, but if they don't connect to it at the same time, like they're not going to be coming back to another show,
right?
And that's what you're really going for, right? Aren't you going to build like long-term fans and like people, like repeat customers, if you will? You know, that's where the long-term success is.
Yeah, and I think also, like, we were talking about how a big part of like the mental blocks that come with creating something is, you know, like feeling like when you're not really putting your most like meaning into what you're doing, like you feel like you're almost wasting your time, like wasting precious time that you could be doing something else. But you also have to think about that in the audience's perspective. Why would they come back to your platform when they're not getting anything out of it? They feel like they're wasting their time. So like you have to put something out there where your audience genuinely feels like they're getting something out of it. Like we were talking about value. Like you need to be bringing something to the table, you know? And I think it's worth just honestly asking yourself, like, what is my value? Like, what am I bringing to the table? Because it's easy to get caught up in the trap. And I especially, like, I felt this before I started my podcast, like, everyone has a podcast nowadays. Like, what do I have to bring to the table that's different? Everyone has a self-help podcast where they're talking about mindset and whatever it is. Like, what do I have to bring to the table? And that's when I found, like, you know, like creating seasons that are meaningful to me, talking about things that really resonate with me so that it comes out more authentic. Like finding those little branches that come off of it that make it more personal to you so that you show up more authentically and like more vulnerable to your audience, and they're able to connect with you on like a deeper level that's not just like surface level, you know?
Yeah, providing value is very interesting because I feel like when you break it down or you analyze it kind of the way you described, I think it can sometimes backfire, because then you start going into the pandering to the audience. But yeah, like it's helpful to think in those terms. But I think honestly, I think it does get baked into your process if you're approaching it in the ways that we've discussed before, where it's like you're doing it, you're putting out content or art that is most true to yourself, that what you're trying to express. And you know, artists can different shapes and sizes. But if you're an artist that you're doing it with like long-term intentions, I feel like the value does get baked in to a degree.
100%.
At least more than someone who's doing it from a short-term perspective.
No, for sure. My last like overarching concept I kind of want to cover a little bit is just being satisfied with the outcome as an artist, because I think that is a big thing to note when you're talking about creative fulfillment, because as the creator, you are the only person that decides when your project is finished, like when you deem it good enough, you know? And a quote that I got from Harry Styles, actually, from like a Zane Lowe Harry Styles interview from his Harry's House album. He said, there's like a difference between feeling relief for not failing versus celebration. You know, huge difference, because celebration is something where you genuinely like, you feel good about what you created. And it's not just oh my God, like I got that over with. Thank God I got that concept over with and I don't have to think about it anymore. So I think it's really hard for people to honestly take pride in the things that they create. And that's when they rely on the audience to give them that satisfaction. Like they are only able to celebrate it if the audience is also celebrating it, you know?
Yeah, and that's, going back to like, well, why are you really doing it? Like the authenticity piece of it.
Yeah.
Is this self-expression or is this a job?
Right.
Is this a chase of clout? Like all that stuff
Right.
I feel like piles in. But my mind went to a Post Malone interview. I think it was an Apple Music interview where he was talking about how he doesn't make music to make hits. He just makes music to make good music that he enjoys, like that he likes. And I think that is a great barometer for like, well, when are you done, or when are you most fulfilled? Like where is that line? Because it is easy to get lost in the sauce.
100%.
But if you're doing it from like that perspective and you really keep that North Star, I think it helps tremendously.
Yeah.
In that regard. And I had another example to like the Harry Styles scenario that you brought up.
Yeah.
Another quote from Rick Rubin is like, a great indication that you're done with the work is when you can't take anything away from it anymore.
I like that.
So I think if you're viewing like a painting, like for example, like I think you'd run the risk of looking at it as like, oh, well, what details can I add to it that would make it better? But it's actually the opposite. It's like, what can I take away from it that will still keep its essence? And that's when it's done, because like perfection or I guess if you want to call it perfection, I don't like to use that word with creativity, but it's when you boil something down to its most basic elements and it still conveys the same story.
Yeah. Because you can overcomplicate something easily.
That's where the true simplicity is. And it really rings true beautifully in stand-up comedy. Great rule that I follow is like, if you can say something in 5 words and it could be said in 1, say it in 1.
Right.
100%. That's always not true.
Yeah.
It simplifying things. And like one of the things I admire hip hop artists and rappers about is the ability to pack so much information and thought into a single bar, into like 8 syllables.
Right.
And you're thinking about 8 different things, or with double entendres and what this means and how it relates to that, and it rhymes, and that's like the incredible, I guess, aspect of that art. But it's super fascinating to just be able to boil something down to its simplest core, I guess, is what this long-winded explanation is getting at. But to answer that question of like, when is a work finished? I think I always go back to that quote. It's done when you can no longer subtract anything from it.
Right.
I think that's a great way to look at it. Because from the opposite perspective that I was bringing up before, you can always add something.
Yeah, 100%.
And then now, once you add a single element, the whole art is changed.
Right.
It might not be changed significantly, but it is changed. So, and like how you judge whether or not that's good or bad, that's a really, jarring question to be asking yourself. Now add on, are you asking that question to yourself after working on this piece for, 30 hours?
Right.
That's a whole nother question.
Right.
Of that mental fatigue and all of that. So I think this is a cool conversation. I think we're getting at a cool concept or thing to live by as a creative, is to just keep things as simple as possible.
Yeah.
And simplicity is a great guideline to follow.
100%.
Because like, you got to remember, other people are digesting this.
Right.
So if it's complicated for you, it's going to be really complicated for others.
Right.
So I think that's actually a healthy way of taking the audience into consideration.
Yeah.
Is
making
like,
it digestible.
Is this like dumbing it down? Like I've listened to Jay-Z and J. Cole talking about dumbing down their lyrics so they're easier to comprehend from the listener's perspective.
Yeah.
You could have a sick like quadruple entendre, but if no one understands it, is it really that great? Like, it might be great to you, it might be cool to you. And if you want to include that in your own music and it be your own little thing, fine, that's great. Like artist choice, right? And everything. But at the same time, you can't all your music can't be like that.
Right.
Because then no one will listen to it. So,
right. Yeah. Keep it simple.
You know, that's always a good rule of thumb.
When you're keeping it simple, the work you're putting out is more meaningful. It holds more value, you know?
Yeah. And it also, it gives off the quality of this has been thought out. This has been well crafted. This has been fine tuned. This is an artist. This is a genius at work.
Right.
Type thing.
100%.
It's like, oh, wow. Like, I see what they said, and like, you know, I probably could have said what they said too, but I would have said it in like a whole paragraph and they did it in a sentence. That's pretty incredible how they got there. Like, wow.
That's why we have these moments where we're like, oh my God, like how was that artist able to evoke that emotion and like actually put my thoughts into words that I couldn't, you know? That's where that comes from. And that's when you really stick to artists in terms of like lyrical artists, like that's what makes them stand out. It's like just them being able to just express something in a 2-minute song that you couldn't even put into words yourself, you know?
Right.
So it's almost like instead of looking at, you know, like that 2-minute frame that you really have to produce music, like mostly like you can produce a longer song, but if you look at that as a limit, then it limits your creative ability a lot. But if you look at that as, let me just make this so simple, let me put everything that needs to be in this 2-minute frame, then that's when like all of the other stuff that just adds to it, like you take that out and you're just focusing simply on like what it was meant to be in the first place, you know?
Right. Exactly. And then you're keeping its true essence. It's true. And you're going to get the maximum impact for your effort.
Right.
When it's like that, you know?
For sure.
And to go back to the Post Malone quote, where it's like, I don't make hits, I just want to make good music. It's like, I view it's like, to give a sports metaphor, it's like it helps if you've played baseball before, but you could probably get it even if you haven't. So like if you go up to the plate and you're trying to hit a home run, you're probably going to wind up striking out or popping up because you're going to dip your shoulder. You're going to putting yourself in a mindset that you're not usually when you're going up to the plate just to put a good swing on the ball.
Right.
And obviously when you put a good swing on the ball is when you're most likely to hit it out of the park.
Right.
So I
like that analogy. Yeah.
It's all of that. You know, and you have to, I think, put yourself in that position in order to do that. I read a recent article, a Stoic article, it was really cool. A famous Stoic example is of like an archer. It's like the archer does everything in his power to make his arrow hit his target. He makes his arrows, he strings his bow, he keeps everything in good order, he cleans it, he measures for wind, he takes all the necessary precautions before, but as soon as he shoots his arrow, it's out of his control.
Right.
You know, a sudden wind gust can take it off course, but he did everything within his power, within his control to get the outcome that he wants.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't materialize, it is what it is. He did what he could do, and you know that's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that completely, like, that goes right back to what I said about care instead of control. Like, do exactly everything that you can do, but also relinquish control to the sense that, like, the things that are supposed to stick will stick, you know? Like, you can't force art to be meaningful to someone else because it might not be, and you have to be okay with that.
Right. And, like, you really have to take the outcome out of it. And this ties great into your leading question in the segment. Mm-hmm. It's so much out of your control. You gotta put just your best swing on it, and whatever happens, and then you learn from that, and then you take it into your next plate appearance, if you will, and that's really all you can do. Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy because especially in the creative world, I don't know, just like every artist that's putting something out, as the consumer of their art, like, you don't even think about all of the times they failed. Like, you don't think about that. Like, Jay Shetty is one of the biggest health and mindset podcasts out there. And it took him like 13 years to build an audience, and now he's like the #1 podcast. Like 13 years. And
Seriously?
no one knows that unless he says it. Like, you don't know that. Like, all of your favorite artists that you listen to every single day, listen to their music. Like, they did not just pop off randomly, like the second that they decided to start creating music. It took them years to get to where they were. Seriously. And it's just like, I feel like we're so hard on ourselves. Like, we're our biggest critics, and that can be so good, but it can also be so detrimental to your art, because going back to what we said, like, you cannot put judgment on yourself when you're trying to create, or else what you're creating is not going to be meaningful. It's not going to be your best foot forward, you know?
Yeah. Like, I love watching videos of like artists in the studio or stuff like that, because that's where you see all their mistakes.
Right.
And like, it's so helpful to see successful people messing up or talk about how they mess up, because it brings them down and makes them more human, and therefore it makes it easier for you to see yourself on their level, one. But also it's also like gives you like great peace of mind. It's like, no, it's okay, you know, because I struggle with like making mistakes, and because I feel like it's a waste of time and all that stuff. So it helps keep that frame of mind of like making mistakes and making art that we're not going to use or benefit from, like we talked about before. It makes it easier to stomach that and to keep progressing creatively and stay in it and not burn out and just really just be an artist.
Yeah.
You know, because I've thought about this a lot too, because I've thought about like coaching in my life and like what I would do, and like I've thought about this scenario a lot, how like if I had a basketball team, for example, I think one of the first things I would show, and I'm talking about maybe like young kids, maybe like a high school team.
Yeah.
People really starting on their journey, right? And that this is great, because this is really what your podcast is geared towards. People starting on their journey. I would show a video of LeBron, of a highlight tape, if you will.
Yeah.
Or we'll call it a low light tape of like LeBron's mistakes, or video of LeBron early on in his career when he was messing up.
Right.
Or LeBron doing a drill 100 times before he got it right. Something like that. And now that's his signature move. But look, he messed it up 100 times before he perfected it and was able to deploy it in the fourth quarter and win the game.
Right.
Like, show like step 1 to step, 1,000.
Yeah.
A to Z, like what it takes, but also like use it as like a permission to like mess up.
Right.
Because, and like to give like a high school sports example, I know it's like, I hate the culture of like, oh, I can't mess up in practice because like I'm not going to get playing time in the game tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mentality that was like so toxic and not helpful on a personal level, on a team level.
No, especially
because that's your time to mess up.
Exactly.
Right. And yeah, not even to mention like your development, your age, and like how it impacts your mental development and everything.
Yeah, I agree.
That aside, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Just for like, getting the best outcome in your what you're pursuing.
Right.
It's just so important to be able to experiment and to work on something without the outcome impacting your judgment of your skill level, your confidence, your overall self-worth, or your perception of your art, all that stuff. Just produce whatever comes out. Honestly, like one of the things about the Mac that I love so much about Mac Miller, it's like I feel like he was really just like he was just putting out music,
right?
And like if it came out and it was like weird, like one of the things I love about him, and funny enough, it makes him unique as an artist, is like how some of his bars are just like out of left field and don't really make sense, or they're funny, like they're not like your typical like hip hop bar, but that makes him unique and creative and interesting, in my eyes. And like other people might find it weird or corny or like whatever, but it's it's a cool little making of your art in a it's just you're showing your true self. That's when you're showing your true self and vulnerability and who you are really as a person. I
realized, like, when you were saying that, Some of my favorite artists are, in terms of music wise, are artists that you can't really categorize. Like you can't just call them a hip hop artist. You can't just call them a pop. Like Mac Miller and Post Malone are the two people who come to my mind when I think that. Like Post Malone's doing country stuff right now.
Right.
But like he started off doing rap, then he went into some like alternative stuff. Like they've tested out all levels, like everything that they possibly could, because they didn't put limits on their creative expansion, you know?
It's like a chicken or the egg thing too.
Yeah.
It's like, are they great artists because they've been able to evolve, or do they evolve because they're a great artist?
Right.
Like it,
yeah.
They do all share that in common. And I honestly, I think it just boils down to like a willingness to make mistakes.
Right.
You know what I mean? To constantly evolve. And it's a balance. Like it's like staying true to yourself in your art, and also being okay with flopping at the same time. And again, to bring it back to like comedy, that is what comedy is.
Yeah.
Comedy is like baseball, and like you're striking out most of the time, at least when you're starting out.
Right.
And you're trying to figure it out. And it's a very lonely place being on stage and failing.
And it owes you nothing. It owes you absolutely nothing. Right. You could be doing it for 13 years. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. And it just, you're going to get out what you put into it.
Right.
So it's like, really, you just have to put yourself into that position, like I said before, of like putting yourself with the best chance of success.
Right.
Like The Archer. And, you know, if the audience likes it, they like it. You know what I mean? Even if you don't get laughs one night, it might not be your fault. Like it just might be an uptight audience.
Yeah.
It just like sometimes there is those scenarios where it's like, no, like what you did is fine. Or like you just like, if you just change one thing, it'll work the next time.
Right.
Like it really isn't so black and white all the time. Which I know I often tend to make it.
Yeah. No, 100%.
But these talks are a good way to like untangle the brain and like really get to like really what it is, and
exactly
how you really get to that optimal level of like creativity.
Exactly. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like the last thing I just want to add, honestly, is like this quote that I think about often. Like when we're talking about creativity, I think it's really important to note that your future is not trading your time for money. It's trading your gifts for money. So that just kind of comes down to like,
I love that.
What about me? What value do I hold that will make me money in the end of the day? Because like, if you want to pursue something, and it's not me saying like take money completely out of it. Like you're allowed to still want to,
no, of course,
you know, profit off of your craft. Yeah.
You got it's not anything to be ashamed of for wanting to profit from your own gifts. Like I think that's completely okay, obviously. But that is, I think, super cool, because, and I'm a person who, I'm not super self-motivated. Like it's harder for me. I'm more likely to work out like if I'm going to the gym with someone.
Right.
Type thing. That,
you
know, or, you know, there's something outside of myself, which is not, you know, that's not always the best. The best motivation, I guess, is always like intrinsic. But I do find a healthy motivator that's outside of me is like the giving my gifts for. Like this is like me not doing this is sacrificing like from the world, from getting something. It sounds very self-aggrandizing, but it's not. It's like I'm offering this to the world for their consumption, their enjoyment,
right?
You know, whether or not they enjoy it at all. Like it's like it's a gift. I'm offering a gift, like you know what I mean? So, and I don't mean that in like the quality of it. It's just like I'm offering my services.
And I'm offering
my, like, this is a present. You know, not all presents are great, like, but it's a present at the end of the day, and it makes me feel good. You know, giving gifts is a pleasurable act for most people.
I think a question that most people would probably have, though, is like, what are my gifts? Like, a lot of people don't know what their gifts are, and that's kind of a huge reason why I created this platform, is because knowing yourself deeper and understanding yourself deeper is how you get to know what you're good at, you know, like the more that you feed into it, the better you know that you're actually good at it. Like I was never really good at like public speaking until I created a podcast, and now I can stand up in front of people and I'm like not as anxious and like things come out better. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to honestly like get past those limiting beliefs and just like push past that fear, like we were talking in the beginning, and literally just keep pouring into those parts of yourself that are like trying to be seen, but you're suppressing because you're scared, because those are your gifts. Those are your gifts. You're just scared of showing them to the world because of judgment and fear and whatever you're telling yourself, you know?
Right.
But yeah, I think that's a great place to stop. So that was a great conversation. Like genuinely, I think that it's something that like people can get a lot out of, because the creative process is something that I think we all feel like no one else feels the way that we do when we're creating. Like we just feel like everyone else has it all figured out and that they're not scared to put their art out. They're not scared to pour into it. But I think the truth is that like we all are. Like it's scary as hell. It's a scary world out there. And I just think it was a conversation that needs to be had. So thank you for coming on.
Happy to be here. No, I think it's like we're really getting at like the overlap of creativity and just being and living, like the Rick Rubin book.
Yep.
Where the title is The Creative Act, a Way of Being.
Yeah.
And he set out writing the book as just a way for artists to kind of start and make sense of the creative process. And it really just evolved into a way to live, because I think the two are just so enmeshed and like we don't even realize it. We just view as like, you know, creative people are artists and no one else is creative, but
like they have something special that no one else does. But the truth is we all
everyone's an artist. Like if you're a stay-at-home mom, like you're an artist. Like you're like how you are a mother is, you know, a work of art.
100%. Like no matter what, like when you leave this world, there's something that you're going to leave behind, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's super special. And I love the way that Rick Rubin titles it A Way of Being, not a way of doing, because we are human beings. We're not human doings, you know, like we're meant here to live presently and to let our art just like speak through us rather than trying to control it, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think that's a great place to stop. So if you want to plug anything.
I don't have any like handles or anything. It's just like, personal. But no, nothing like that. But I mean, I could plug B2G, Between Two Gardens. Yeah. My podcast that I do with my buddy Dan Emmons. It's a New York and Boston sports rivalry podcast that we started. You know, our friendship is oddly rooted in our hatred of each other's sports teams. So it provides some fun conversations and back and forth and rousing of each other. So it's a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
If you feel inclined, we have fun with it. So
yeah, for sure.
We'll have the Celtics NBA Finals episode coming out soon, which won't be fun, but you know, I'll find ways to make fun of that Mickey Mouse championship, which I'm already doing. But yeah, just about that comedy, and we'll see it where it takes me. It's fun. It's don't get me wrong, it's like a struggle at times too. It's just like creativity is a battle sometimes, but and especially starting off.
For sure, starting is the hardest part.
Completely new and something that like it really is completely self-taught. That it's tough, but I'm learning so much about myself, and you know, we've talked about privately, like putting yourself in situations where no matter what, even if I fail, I come out on top, which sounds backwards, but it's true. It's like, you know, like even if I like quit in a few years, which I don't see happening. Yeah. But even if I fail, like I've already like learned so much about myself. I've learned how like anxiety works within myself and fear, and like how like, oh, if I, you know, this really isn't as big as what my mind's making it up to be. You know, just to give examples. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's been fun. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and tune in every Monday. We'll have an exciting episode next week as well. Share this episode, and you can find me at Patience to Prosperity on Instagram and TikTok, and shoot me a DM if you feel inclined to, and leave the show a rating on Apple Podcasts because it really helps other people find my platform. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. See you next week.